Hello students, in this lecture we will discuss the basic fundamentals associated with the energy interactions and the phenomena that basically conceptualize the first law of thermodynamics and the basic expression of the first law of thermodynamics in this lecture. As we all know that energy can exist in many forms, be it thermal, mechanical, kinetic, potential, electric, magnetic, chemical and nuclear. And there some constitutes the total energy E of a system. Thermodynamics does not provide any information about the absolute value of total energy. It deals only with the change of total energy, and basically that is the thing that matters in engineering problems. Thus, total energy of a system can be assigned the value of 0, means E can be 0 at some convenient reference point. The change in total energy of a system is independent of the reference point selected. The decrease in the potential energy of a stone that is falling from a cliff depends only on the difference of height or difference of elevation and not the reference level selected. In thermodynamic analysis, we consider the various forms of energy that make up the total energy of the system into two groups, macroscopic and microscopic. The macroscopic form of energy are those a system possesses as a whole with respect to some outside reference frame, such as kinetic energy and potential energy. Okay, so basically these are the energy that are taken of a body or of a system as a whole. Means, for example, a body is there and the body as a whole is moving with certain kinetic energy, or it is having certain potential energy with reference to some frame of reference. Then it is called macroscopic energy, because it is the energy that is referring to the kinetic or potential energy of the body as a whole. Okay. The microscopic form of energy are those related to the molecular structure of a system and the degree of molecular activity, and they are independent of outside reference frames. Okay. Now if we describe the energy related to the molecules, atoms, means translational energy of the atom or molecule, or rotational kinetic energy of the atom or molecule, or potential energy of the atom or molecule with reference to some frame of reference, internal frame of reference, not outside frame of reference, then these all will constitute a microscopic form of energy. The sum of all the microscopic forms of energy is called the internal energy of a system and is denoted by U. The macroscopic energy of a system is related to the motion and the effect of some external effects such as gravity, magnetism, electricity and surface tension. The energy that a system possesses as a result of its motion relative to some reference frame is called the kinetic energy. When all the parts of system move with the same velocity, the kinetic energy can be expressed by this equation, mc square by 2, or on unit mass basis it can be c square by 2. The energy that a system possesses as a result of its elevation, means by the virtue of its height in a gravitational field, is called the potential energy and is expressed by the expression mgz, where z is height of the body from some reference frame, or on unit mass basis it can be written as g into z. Only in some specialized cases, the magnetic effects, the electric effects, and the surface tension effects are significant. In rest of all the cases, they are usually ignored as they are negligible. Now, in the absence of such effects, the total energy of the system is basically consisting of the terms, that is like kinetic energy term, potential energy term of the body as a whole, and of course the internal energies, and is expressed by the expression given on the slide. You can see the total energy denoted by E is equal to U, that is internal energies. These are the energies of microscopic level. These are microscopic energy. Then kinetic energy and potential energy. These are the macroscopic energies because they are referring to the kinetic energy of the body as a whole, and this is referring to the potential energy of the body as a whole. On the unit mass basis, we can say that the total energy can be expressed by this expression. In most of the generally encountered practical problems related to closed system, their velocity and elevation of the center of gravity remain constant during a process, and thus experience no change in their kinetic and potential energies. That is why the closed systems are also referred as stationary systems. And in these cases, the change in total energy, that is delta E of a stationary system, is the same as the change in its internal energy, that is delta U. Internal energy is defined as the sum of all the microscopic forms of energy of a system. It is basically related to the molecular structure and the degree of molecular activity, and is basically considered as the sum of the kinetic and potential energy of the molecules. For example, the molecules of a gas move through space with some velocity and thus possess some kinetic energy. This is known as translational energy. The atoms of polyatomic molecules, they basically rotate about an axis, and the energy related with this rotation is rotational kinetic energy. If the atoms of the polyatomic molecule vibrate about their common center of mass, then the energy associated with this back and forth motion is called as vibrational kinetic energy. For gases, translational and rotational motions are the chief contributors of kinetic energy. The vibration motion becomes significant at high temperatures only. The portion of the internal energy of a system associated with the kinetic energies of the molecules is called sensible energy. The average velocity and the degree of activity of the molecules are proportional to the temperatures of the gas. Therefore, at high temperatures, the molecules possess higher kinetic energies, and as a result, the system has a higher internal energy. If sufficient energy is added to the molecules of a solid or liquid, the molecules overcome these molecular forces and they break away, turning the substance into a gas. This is basically a phase change process. Now, because of this added energy, a system in the gas phase is at higher internal energy level than it is in the solid or liquid phase. The internal energy associated with the phase of a system is called the latent energy. So the forms of energy, kinetic, potential and internal energies. And if we classify the internal energies further, then we can say translational energy or rotational kinetic energy or vibrational kinetic energy, or in other terms we can say sensible energy or latent energy, which basically constitute the total energy of system, can be contained or stored in a system, and they are basically called the static forms of energies. Okay, so basically, in other words, we can say that the forms of energy, that is kinetic energies, potential energy and internal energies, they are known as static forms of energies because they are supposed to be contained or stored in a system. And the forms of energy which are not supposed to be stored in the system, which are not considered to be stored in the system, they are considered as basically dynamic forms of energy, or we can call them energy interactions. So the dynamic forms of energy are recognized at system boundary as they cross it. They are not contained within the body. They are identified only when they are crossing the boundary. And they represent the energy gained or lost by them during a process. The only two forms of energy interactions, that is dynamic form of energy, associated with closed system are heat transfer and work. There is a difference between the macroscopic kinetic energy of an object as a whole and the microscopic kinetic energies of its molecules that constitute the sensible internal energy of the object. The kinetic energy of an object is an organized form of energy associated with the orderly motion of all its molecules in one direction in a straight path or around the axis. For example, a body is there, solid body is there, and if it is moving straight on a path along a straight line, then all its constituent particles are moving with the same velocity. And suppose a solid sphere is there, or a sphere is there, and say it is rotating around an axis. Now all the particles, all the constituent particles of which that sphere is made of, they are rotating along the same axis, and all the molecules, all the constituent particles are rotating with the same angular velocity. Okay, so that is why the kinetic energy of that body, whether it is rotating or whether it is moving along a straight path, that is going to be organized form of energy, because all the molecules are moving orderly with same velocity. Okay. Apart from this, the kinetic energies of the molecules are completely random and highly disorganized. Means there is sort of chaos. The movement of molecules because of the kinetic energy, that is not ordered. So that is basically giving rise to disorganized form of energy. We will appreciate the fact in following lectures that organized energy is much more valuable than the disorganized energy, and a major application area of thermodynamics is the conversion of disorganized energy, that is heat, into organized energy, that is work. So heat is basically a disorganized form of energy and work is a organized form of energy. We will also see that organized energy can be converted to disorganized energy completely, but vice versa is not true. That is, only a fraction of disorganized energy can be converted to organized energy with the help of heat engines. Similar argument stands for the macroscopic potential energy of an object as a whole and the microscopic potential energies of the molecules. A glass of cold water left on a table warms up, whereas a hot baked potato on the same table cools down. As you must have noticed in your daily life that when a body is left in a medium that is at somewhat different temperature that of a body, energy transfer takes place between the body and the surrounding medium until thermal equilibrium is established. Thermal equilibrium means the body and the medium, they have reached the same temperature. And what will be the direction of energy transfer? The direction of energy transfer is always from the high temperature body to the low temperature body. When will energy transfer stop? Once the temperature equality is established, energy transfer will stop. So energy here is transferred in the form of heat. So basically heat is defined as the form of energy that is transferred between two systems, or instead of two systems we can have a system and its surroundings by virtue of temperature difference. So heat is energy in transition. It is recognized only as it crosses the boundary of a system. See, in thermodynamics, whenever we say heat, it means we are referring to the heat transfer. Okay. A process during which there is no heat transfer, it is called an adiabatic process. Now there are two ways by which a process can be adiabatic. Either the system is well insulated so that only a negligible amount of heat can pass through the boundary, or both the system and the surroundings are at the same temperature and therefore there is no driving force. Driving force means temperature difference for heat transfer. An adiabatic process should never be confused with an isothermal process. Even though there is no heat transfer during an adiabatic process, the energy content and thus the temperature of a system can still be changed by other means such as work. Since heat is a form of energy, it is having energy units, that is kilojoule. The amount of heat transferred during a process between states 1 and 2, that is between two states, that is state 1 and 2, they can be written as Q12. It means the process is happening from state 1 to state 2, or we can just write Q. Heat transfer per unit mass of a system is denoted by small q and is determined from the equation shown on the slide. Sometimes it is desirable to know the rate of heat transfer, that is the amount of heat transferred per unit time instead of total heat transferred over some time interval. The heat transfer rate is denoted by Q dot, where this over dot stands for the time derivative, that is per unit time. The heat transfer rate Q dot has the unit kilojoule per second, which is equivalent to kilowatt. If Q dot is varying with time, the amount of heat transferred during the process is determined by integrating Q dot over the time interval of the process. Work, like heat, is an energy interaction between a system and its surroundings. As mentioned earlier, energy can cross the boundary of a closed system in the form of heat or work. Now the thermodynamic definition of work is said to be done by system if the sole effect on the surroundings means everything external to the system could be the raising of a weight. This definition does not state that a weight will actually rise or that a force will actually act through a given distance, but the sole effect, the only effect external to the system could be the raising of a weight. Consider a system consisting of a battery and motor, and let the motor drive a fan. Does work cross the boundary of a system? To answer this question, using this definition of work, we replace the fan with pulley arrangement. As the motor turns, the weight is raised, and the sole effect on the surroundings is the raising of a weight. Thus, for our original system means battery operated motor that is driving fan. So for this our original system which is driving the fan, we conclude that work is crossing the boundary of system since the only effect on the surroundings is the raising of a weight. One form of mechanical work that we frequently encounter in practice is associated with the expansion or compression of a gas in a piston cylinder device. During this process, part of the boundary means the inner face of the piston moves back and forth, or in the case of vertical cylinder, it moves up and down as shown on the slide. Therefore, the expansion and compression work is often called moving boundary work or PDV work. See, moving boundary work is the primary work that is involved in case of automobile engines that are driving our vehicles. Now, during the expansion process, what is happening? The combustion gases, they are forcing the piston to move, which in turn is forcing the crankshaft to rotate. Now, the moving boundary work associated with real engines or compressors cannot be determined exactly from a thermodynamic analysis alone, because the piston usually moves at very high speeds, making it difficult for the gas inside to maintain equilibrium. Consequently, the states through which the system passes during the process cannot be specified, and no process path can be drawn. And as you know that work is a path function and cannot be determined analytically without the knowledge of path. Therefore, the boundary work in real engines or compressors is determined by direct measurements. So what we are analyzing? We are analyzing the moving boundary work for quasi-equilibrium process, a process during which the system remains nearly in equilibrium at all times. Okay, so if we want to find out the work, find out the PDV work, then system is assumed to be executing a quasi-equilibrium process. It means that process that is happening or that is actually taking place. So the system or the substance, the quantity of matter inside it, that should remain nearly in equilibrium at all times. That is what quasi-equilibrium process means. So a quasi-equilibrium process, also called quasi-static process, is closely approximated by real engines, especially when the piston moves at low velocities. That is why I said earlier that In the case of real engines which are moving at high speed, we cannot find out the boundary movement work by the integration of PDV. Okay, so that is basically happening for the engines when the piston is moving at low velocity, because there the process is assumed to be or can be well approximated as executing quasi-equilibrium process. So under identical conditions, the work output of engines is found to be maximum and the work input to the compressors to be minimum when quasi-equilibrium processes are used in place of non-quasi-equilibrium processes. So how the work associated with the moving boundary is evaluated for a quasi-equilibrium process? So you can see here on the slide that we are considering a gas enclosed in piston cylinder device. The initial pressure of the gas is P, okay, and the total volume is V. The cross-sectional area of the piston is A. If the piston is allowed to move a distance dl in a quasi-equilibrium manner, the differential work done during the process is P into A into dl, because P into A is force. So force into displacement, that is going to give us work, as the definition you have learnt in the process, learnt in the in your earlier classes. So the work done is equal to P into A into dl, and A into dl is dV, that is the change in volume of the gas. Therefore the work can be called as, or the boundary movement work, moving boundary work can be called as PDV. Okay. That is the boundary work, and the differential form is equal to the product of the absolute pressure P and the differential change in the volume, that is dV of the system. Okay, so now by this time it is clear why the moving boundary work is sometimes called PDV work. So in this equation, P is the absolute pressure, which is always positive. However, the volume change dV can be positive as it is during the expansion process because volume increases, or it can be negative during a compression process because during compression process volume decreases. So the boundary work can be positive during an expansion process and negative during a compression process. The total boundary work done during the entire process means from point 1, state 1 to state 2, as the piston moves, is obtained by adding all the differential works from the initial state to the final state. Initial state is the state 1 and final state is the state 2. Okay, and the differential work for a small strip, for a small distance, is shown by shaded, pink shaded area, that is dA. Okay, so from the point 1 to till point 2 we can have these differential works, and by adding all these we can get the entire work, the entire total boundary work for the process 1 to 2. Okay, now the integral can be evaluated easily. If we talk mathematically, the integral can be evaluated easily if we know the function relationship between the P and V. Means P should be expressed as the function of V, that is volume. So basically, in other words, we can say the area under the process path 1 to 2 on PV diagram gives us the boundary work, or in the terms of mathematics we can say that we can obtain the boundary work by integrating PDV. So we can say the area under the process curve on a PV diagram is equal in magnitude to the work done during a quasi-equilibrium expansion or compression process of a closed system. Now, a substance can follow several different paths as it expands from state 1 to state 2. In general, each path will have a different area underneath it, and since this area represents the magnitude of the work done will be different for each process. As shown on the diagram, process 1 to 2A is constant pressure process, and the area 1 to 2A FE1 represents the work. Similarly, line 1 to 2B represents the process in which the product of P and V is constant. It means it is hyperbolic law, and also we can say it to be isothermal if the substance is ideal gas. Line 1 to 2C is the process which is following the law P into V raised to power n equals to constant, where the value of n is being given as 1.3 here in this case. Okay, and the line 1 to 2D is a constant volume process. So boundary work for each of the cases can be obtained by integrating PDV from the initial state to final state, means as a lower limit and upper limit. And for each case we will be interested to have a relation between the pressure and volume as the governing equation. So we will discuss in subsequent slides that how we can obtain the value of boundary work for each case. Though you have read all these things in your earlier classes like 11th and 12th, how to obtain the expression for the work for each processes by the integration of PDV. So here we want to find out the expression for the evaluation of boundary movement work for a simple compressible substance like gas during different quasi-equilibrium processes. Now, first of all, we take up the polytropic process. Though the polytropic process represented by the governing equation P into V raised to power n equals to constant, mathematically it covers all the processes under the sun, all the thermodynamic processes under the sun, be it constant pressure process, be it constant volume process, be it adiabatic process, or any other process for the different value of polytropic index, that is n. If n is bearing the value 0, then it is constant pressure process. If n is having value infinite, then it is constant volume process. If n is equal to gamma, then it is adiabatic process, and if n equals to 1, then it is hyperbolic process, hyperbolic law, and also isothermal if the substance is ideal gas. Okay, so by the equation or by the expression P into V raised to power n, we can represent each and every thermodynamical process under the sun. But even then, only for the special cases we call a process to be polytropic, like which are having the value of n equals to 1.1 up to 1.4. So for the values of polytropic index ranging from 1.1 to 1.4, normally we call them polytropic, not others. Because rather than calling a constant pressure process to be a polytropic process having the value of index equals to 0, we will like to call it a constant pressure process. Now we want to derive the expression for the boundary movement work. So here the relation between the P and V is being given, that is P into V raised to power n is equal to constant. This is the governing equation. So here in place of P you write C into V raised to power minus n, and you substitute here in the equation and you integrate. So you obtain the result P1 V1 minus P2 V2 upon n minus 1, and this expression holds good for all the values except the value n equals to 1. So this is not holding good for the value n equals to 1. Now if the substance is ideal gas, then you can say PV is equal to MRT holds good, and therefore the expression of work can be written as MRT1 minus MRT2 upon n minus 1. The derivation for the expression of boundary movement work for the adiabatic process can be carried out on the similar lines as we have done for the polytropic process, because here the only difference lies that for the adiabatic process n polytropic index is replaced by gamma, the ratio of specific heats. So the expression for the boundary movement work is equal to P1 V1 minus P2 V2 upon gamma minus 1, and that is equal to MRT1 minus MRT2 upon gamma minus 1. Now for the isothermal process, the governing equation is P into V equals to constant for ideal gas. Mind it, this expression is valid for isothermal process only when the substance is ideal gas. Otherwise it is valid only for the hyperbolic law, that is the process where the product of P and V is equal to constant. I have made this clear earlier also, that if the substance is ideal gas, then hyperbolic law, that is P into V is equal to constant, and isothermal means one and the same thing. So here, since we have assumed the substance to be ideal gas, so hyperbolic law and isothermal process means one or the same thing, and the expression for the work can be obtained by substituting the value of P by C upon V, because P into V is equal to constant, so P has been substituted by C upon V, and we finally obtain the expression P into V into natural log of V2 upon V1. Okay, so here you can write either P1 V1 ln of V2 upon V1 or P2 V2 ln of V2 upon V1, one or the same thing. Now for the constant pressure process, as you know that because pressure is constant, so P will come out of integration sign because it is constant, and if you integrate, then you get P into V2 minus V1. Now for the constant volume process, since volume is 0, means the change in volume is 0, I mean to say. So the value of work that you obtain will be 0. Now we want to discuss the similarities between heat and work transfer. See, heat and work are energy transfer mechanisms. They both are directional quantities. Means to describe them completely, whether it is heat or work interaction, we require the specification of magnitude as well as direction. So the way to do it was to adopt a sign convention. Now the generally accepted formal sign convention for heat and work interaction is heat transfer to a system and work done by a system are positive, whereas heat transfer from a system and work done on a system are negative. So I think that is clear. You must have studied these things in your earlier classes, that heat given to the system is positive and heat loss from a system or heat rejection from a system is negative. And for the work transfer, work done by a system is positive, whereas work done on the system is negative. Now both heat and work transfer, they are recognized at the boundaries of a system as they cross the boundaries. Means both heat and work are boundary phenomena. System possess energy but not heat or work. A system may have energy, but it is containing some heat or it is containing some work. That is not acceptable. That is not possible. Both heat and work are associated with a process, not a state. Unlike properties, heat or work has no meaning at a state. Means the transaction of heat or work transfer is only possible during a process. There cannot be interaction of heat or work during a state. It is only possible during a process. Both heat and work are path functions. Their magnitude depends on the path followed during a process as well as the end states. Means apart from the end states, these physical quantities, or you can say the value of these physical quantities, depend on the path followed. That is why they are path functions. Now we want to discuss what is the difference between path function and point function. Basically, path functions are physical quantities, the magnitude of which depend on the path followed during a process as well as the end states. Now, path functions have inexact differentials and they are designated by the symbol delta. That is why the heat transfer and the work transfer, they are designated with sign delta. Means the differential amount of heat or work transfer is represented as delta Q or delta W. Now the properties or point function, they basically are the physical quantities that depend on the state only and not on how a system reaches that state. Means they do not depend upon the path, and they have exact differential, and that is designated by the symbol D. So a small change in volume, for example, which is represented by dV. Okay, so that is basically the example of a point function. And the volume change during process 1 to 2 is always the volume at state 2 minus the volume at state 1, regardless of the path followed. whereas the boundary work del W, which is obtained by integrating the PDV, is a path function. The total work is obtained by following the process path and adding the differential amount of work delta W done along the way. The integral of del W is not W2 minus W1. That is, the work at state 2 minus the work at state 1 is meaningless, because work is a not property and the systems do not possess work at a state. Now if we take another example of a well insulated, that is adiabatic room, that is heated by an electric heater, and that forms our system. As a result of electric work done, the energy of system is going to increase. As the system is adiabatic and heat transfer to or from the surroundings is prohibited. So the conservation of energy principle says that the electric work done on the system will be equal to the increase in the energy of the system. Now, in another example, the temperature of air rises when it is compressed. This is basically because of the fact that energy is transferred to the air in the form of boundary work. So in the absence of any heat transfer, the entire boundary work will be stored in the air as a part of its total energy. So the conservation of energy principle, that is first law, requires that the increase in energy of the system must be equal to the boundary work done on the system. In this example, as shown that a system is gaining 12 kilojoule of heat during a process while 6 kilojoule of work is done on it. The increase in energy of the system during that process is 18 kilojoule. Okay, because Q in is equal to 15 kilojoule and Q out is 3 kilojoule. So 15 minus 3, that is 12, and 6 is the input of work. So the increase in energy of the system during that process is 18 kilojoule. That is, the change in energy of the system during a process is simply equal to the net energy transferred to or from the system. Now we want to discuss the various mechanisms of energy transfer. Energy can be transferred to or from the system basically in three forms: heat transfer, work, and mass flow. And as we have discussed earlier, energy interactions are recognized at the system boundary as they cross it, and they represent the energy gained or lost by a system during a process. Heat transferred to a system, that is heat gain, increases the energy of the molecules and thus the internal energy of the system. Whereas the heat transfer from a system, that is heat loss, that is heat rejection, decreases the energy, because energy transferred out as heat comes from the energy of the molecules of the system. Work transfer, an energy interaction that is not caused by a temperature difference between a system and surrounding, is work. Work transfer to a system, that is work done on a system, increases the energy of the system, whereas work transfer from the system means work done by the system decreases it. Since the energy transferred out as the work comes from the energy contained in the system. Okay, engines, steam or gas turbine, they produces work, while as compressor, pumps, they consume work. Now the mass flow. As you know that mass flow in and out of the system basically serve as an additional mechanism of energy transfer. When a mass enters a system, the energy of the system increases because mass carries energy with it. And when the mass leaves the system, the energy contained within the system decreases because the leaving mass takes out some energy with it. For example, when some hot water is taken out of a water heater and is replaced by same amount of cold water, the energy content of the hot water tank decreases as a result of this mass interaction. This is basically a statement given by Joule for the experimentation conducted by him for a control mass that was undergoing a cycle. He said that if a system, means control mass, a fixed mass, if it is undergoing a cycle, then the cyclic integral of heat transfer is proportional to the cyclic integral of work transfer. It means if a fixed mass is executing a thermodynamic cycle, then you sum up all the heat transfers with the proper sign, and you sum up all the work transfer with the proper sign. Then we will obtain that the summation of heat transfer is proportional to the summation of work transfer if both are in different units. But if they are in same units, means heat and work both are in joule or kilojoule, then you can say the summation of heat transfer is equal to the summation of work transfer. Now to illustrate the first law statement given by Joule for a control mass that was undergoing a cycle, we assume a gas to be the fixed mass, to be the control mass in the container, and that is undergoing a cycle. Now this cycle is made up of two processes, process A and process B, and this A and B is constituting a cycle. So the change of state is from 1 to 2 through process A, and then it's returning back to the initial state 1 through process B. So A and B is constituting a cycle, a thermodynamic cycle. So the statement given by Joule is applicable to this cycle. So you can write for process AB, del QA from 1 to 2 plus del QB from 2 to 1. Means basically these two terms on left hand side are denoting the heat transfers for the cycle constituted by process AB. And on the right hand side we are having the terms for the work transfer for this cycle. So we have written the statement for the first law of thermodynamics given by Joule for the process AB. Now we say that the system or the control mass, instead of undergoing the change of state from 1 to 2 through process A, it is undergoing through process C. Means instead of process A we take up the process C, and then the system is returning back to the initial state through process B. So we can say C and B, they are constituting a cycle. So now we write for the process CB the first law statement given by Joule. So on the left hand side we have written the both the heat transfer terms for the path C and for the path B. Similarly on the right hand side we write both the terms for the work transfer, that is for the path C and for the path B. Now we subtract the second equation from the first and we get the equation shown in the last. Now we rearrange the terms and we bring both the terms for process A on the left hand side of the equality sign and both the terms for process C or path C on the right hand side of the equality sign. Now you can note that in both the cases, that is in the process A and process B, the change of state is taking place from state 1 to state 2. And this term del Q minus del W, we are obtaining the same value for both the processes, both the paths, for the same end states, that is from 1 to 2. It means for the same end states, this del Q minus del W is a term which bears the same value or same magnitude for all the processes, all the paths. Since A and C are representing arbitrary processes between states 1 and 2, the quantity del Q minus del W is same for all the processes between states 1 and 2. It means del Q minus del W depends only on the initial and final states and not on the path followed between the two states. So what we conclude here? We conclude that this is a point function and therefore it is the differential of a property of the mass. This property is the energy of the mass and given the symbol E, capital E. Thus we can write dE is equal to del Q by del W, or we rearrange the terms and we finally obtain del Q is equal to dE plus del W. Mind it, because E is a property, capital E is a property, so its derivative is written as dE. It's not a path function. Heat transfer and work transfer are path function, therefore their derivative is written as del Q and del W. So when this equation means this equation number 3, del Q is equal to dE plus del W, when it is integrated from initial state 1 to final state 2, so we obtain this equation 1Q2 is equal to E2 minus E1 plus 1W2. So here E1 and E2 are the initial and final values of the energy E of the control mass, and 1Q2 is the heat transfer to the control mass during the process from state 1 to 2, and 1W2 is the work done by the control mass during the process. Now if we talk about the physical significance of the property E, capital E, this capital E is basically representing all the energy of the system in the given state. This energy might be present in variety of forms such as kinetic energy or potential energy of the system as a whole with respect to the chosen coordinate frame. Energy associated with the structure of atom, chemical energy present in the storage battery, and many more. Now when we study thermodynamics, then for sake of our convenience we consider the bulk kinetic energy or bulk potential energy separately, and then to consider all the other energy of the control mass in a single property that we call the internal energy, and to which we assign the symbol capital U. So we write capital E is equal to U plus KE plus PE. Okay, so U is internal energy, KE is kinetic energy of the system as a whole, means bulk kinetic energy. Similarly, P is bulk potential energy or the potential energy of the system as a whole. Okay. The kinetic or potential energy of the control mass are associated with the coordinate frame that we select and can be specified by the macroscopic parameters of mass, velocity and elevation. The internal energy U is including all other forms of energy of the control mass and is associated with the thermodynamic state of the system. Since the term comprising capital E are point functions, we have written the equation as dE is equal to du plus dke plus dpe. So the first law of thermodynamics for a change of state may be rewritten by rearranging the terms, and what we obtain, del q is equal to du plus dke plus dpe plus del w. So we can say that this equation is basically stating that as a control mass that is undergoing a change of state, energy may cross the boundary as either heat or work, and each may be positive or negative. The net change in the energy of the system will be exactly equal to the net energy that crosses the boundary of the system. The energy of the system may change in any of three ways: by a change in the internal energy, in kinetic energy, or in potential energy. So the top two equations are representing the change in kinetic energy, followed by the other two equations that are representing the change in potential energy. So for a change of state from state 1 to 2, the change in energy of the control mass may be expressed by the expression E2 minus E1 is equal to U2 minus U1 plus M multiplied with C2 square minus C1 square upon 2 plus mg into Z2 minus Z1. So finally we can write the equation in the form given on the last of the slide. That is, this is basically the expression for the first law of thermodynamics for a control mass. So it is written as 1q2 is equal to u2 minus u1 plus m multiplied with c2 square minus c1 square upon 2 plus mg into z2 minus z1 plus 1 w2. So the three important observations regarding the last equation is that it is more convenient to consider the internal energy and the kinetic energy and the potential energy of the mass rather than dealing with the property capital E, the energy of the control mass. Second observation is that the net change of the control mass is always equal to the net transfer of energy across the boundary as heat and work. There are two ways in which energy can cross the boundary of the control mass, either a heat or as a work, and the energy of the mass will change by the exact amount of the net energy cross the boundary. This equation, the last equation, gives only the changes in internal energy, kinetic energy and potential energy. one can learn nothing about absolute values of these quantities. If one wishes to assign some values to internal energy, kinetic energy and potential energy, he or she must assume reference states and assign a value to the quantity in this reference state. So we will continue our discussion regarding the concepts of first law of thermodynamics and the derivation of the first law for the steady flow system and uniform flow system from the very basic principle or the first principle of thermodynamics in next lectures.